So one of the videos that is incredibly popular, and this is unfortunately due to dysfunction in relationships today and the divisions that we have in families, is dealing with difficult daughter-in-laws. And this is not to say that most daughter-in-laws are problems and mother-in-laws are perfect. This is from the perspective of the mother-in-law when the daughter-in-law is unreasonable and does not want a anything to do with the mother-in-law or the husband's family, husband parents, and is pulling the husband, the son, away from his family, more towards her family, and is just very just excluding of the husband's family, and it is causing him to kind of lose a relationship with his family and go more towards her, which often kind of happens anyway because if a wife is close to her family, she's going to obviously be most comfortable and going to have the mom involved with her children a little bit more. But this is like kind of like the extreme where your wife is very picky, very sensitive, reacts to almost everything your mom does, is very critical of your mother. Your mom can't do anything right. Your mom she feels competitive with your mom. She is jealous of anything that you have to do with your mom. She doesn't want you seeing your mom alone. She doesn't want you and your mom to still have a good relationship, that she feels like that she has to be in competition to that. And it's just kind of a rudeness or a disrespect, being impolite, not being at all concerned about your mom's feelings. We never want to have to cater to an in-law or constantly be allowing that in-law to step on our boundaries or our privacy or our life, or be intrusive, or you know show up unannounced for a month at a time and just, hello, I'm at your doorstep, we're here to stay. I mean, all those kinds of things would obviously be boundary busting choices. But this is when you know that this is going on. You kind of sensed it from the beginning, and it's becoming a bigger problem. And or it could be at the place where your wife doesn't want to have anything to do with your family, and you're having to choose to either go with your wife so that you don't rock the boat and cause her to be upset, or and give up your family and have very little to do with them, and keep her happy. Or if you're going to, fight to still be with your family, it's going to cause a lot of problems with your relationship with your wife and your marriage. And this could be maybe not necessarily wife, but your partner, the person you're with, since so many people live together today. So if that describes you, if you in your own relationship feel like you are walking on eggshells, that the same thing is kind of happening in your relationship where you're always doing the wrong thing. Your wife is very sensitive. She's moody. She's just easily upset. You are always trying to kind of appease her, make her feel better, or explain yourself, or just kind of be quiet. You can't say anything because she doesn't listen. And when you try to explain, you're not going to get your point across. If you're in that situation where you're feeling like you're giving up more of your needs and your opinions and your thoughts to appease her and to keep her happy, then you're probably noticing that there's also some problems in her relationship with your family. And often you can see this right away, where even before the marriage, or before you getting serious with her, that she sort of pulled you away from your family, that there was a competition, that she wanted to spend more time with her family, that she had excuses for not wanting to be with your family, or after you were with your family, she would have things to complain about, or you found yourself having to explain your parents, and you know your parents aren't bad people, and most people are not um, uncomfortable with them. Most people like them, and all she's picking things apart and always finding something to be upset about, then you'll know if this applies to you. So, what can you do? Like I just said, you're going to assess the situation. You're going to see what the truth is as best as you can. Look for patterns. Is your family really dysfunctional? Do you have other people you've dated not wanted to have anything to do with your family? Has your Do other people see your family as a problem? Do your siblings, spouses have like the same kind of concerns and say they don't want to be around your family? Or is this kind of new to you? Are these similar patterns in your own relationship with your wife? Do you see your wife as having problems in some of her other relationships? Is she sensitive with other people? Is she easily upset? Is she critical? Is she hard to please? Just kind of like look for those patterns that you can see. Now, what are the biblical principles? Well, we know, first of all, that you're supposed to put your wife first and your husband first, and that you're creating a family. When we're talking about Western culture, we don't think about um, keeping ourselves, like we don't typically, unless there's financial problems, live with our parents or have our parents live with us from the very beginning. We don't have three generations, four generations living together unless we have poverty. And so that's not typical. But so we do start with our family first. You leave and you cleave to your spouse and you're one. But there's another principle that we've kind of lost in Western civilization, and it is respect of parents. Now, I don't mean tolerating toxic parents that are truly harmful. I mean respecting it, with those. In that case, you have to put some boundaries. We are to respect and honor our parents, and that means that we need to be in our parents' lives when our parents are older and they need help. And it means that we are supposed to honor them as our parents. We don't keep grandchildren from them. I can tell you so many people who write me about the pain that they have from being cut off from their grandchildren after they've had a relationship with them, or never knowing their grandchildren because their children have walked away from them, and according to them, there isn't any reason that they know of, and it's just absolutely heartbreaking, and that's disrespectful. Unless there is truly a reason that you know is legitimate and not your spouse just being just like discriminatory and just not caring or being selfish and wanting to just have you and in her life and not have to be in yours. You have to be respectful to your parents and not do something that is really hurtful. So you've got to kind of walk that line and figure out, like, how can I be putting my wife first, but at the same time be respectful to my parents and to care about your kids, because your kids need both sets of grandparents, except in extreme circumstances. So walking that line, today we default to cutting our parents off way too quickly. It happens way too often fueled by this, like, no, we don't have to have toxic people or difficult people in our life, and not necessarily even toxic. Toxic means to cause harm. Or you can even figure out how to have really dysfunctional parents in your life, but keep them at arm's length, but still allow them to be in your life. They don't, you can have degrees of setting boundaries to where you allow them, but you have certain restrictions. All of that is possible. But so the next one is to recognize that you have to change yourself. Are there any patterns that you have in your relationship with your parents that are not healthy that you need to work on? Or is there anything that you need to do to like improve your relationship with your spouse, your wife? Is there something that you maybe it is the thing that you need to improve is your passivity, or that you're a people pleaser, or that you are um, fearful of speaking your own truth, or that you just kind of like put up with anything, and you don't just don't want to rock the boat. You've got to look at yourself. What part do you play in this? What part is easier for you just to, not deal with this conflict and having to make a stand? Hard to do that, really hard, because if your wife is very picky with your parents, she's likely very picky with you. And that means that you make standing up and saying no, or setting a boundary and saying, I'm going to bring the kids to see my parents, or you don't have to have a relationship with my parents, but I am. That is going to really cause a problem in your relationship. And you're going to have to work up to that, because that's a boundary and it takes a while to get there. So I would say start in your relationship with speaking truth about small things in the relationship that have nothing to do with your parents. That start speaking your truth in your relationship about things that is going on just between you and your wife, things in the home, things that figure out how to speak your truth in love, and how to set boundaries and face your own fears of speaking up to your wife and having there to be a backlash, figuring out the dynamics of your own relationship. Very important that you start there, because setting a boundary with your parents is probably a harder boundary, or for with your parents in terms of having a relationship with them, might be a harder boundary for you to deal with than that. But if it isn't, if you want to start off early in a relationship, the best thing you can do is, if you see this starting to happen and your wife is pulling you very hard away from your family and toward hers, is to set a boundary early, that you're going to have your parents in your life, and that you're not going to exclude them, and you're going to be respectful, and that you're going to have a relationship with them, and not let her pull you away, and let her know that, I'm not going to do that. That's not right. And obviously you would prefer to have her with around you when you're with your parents, but you can always say, I can't make you, but I will. And you do have a right to have a relationship with your mom, your father, your siblings, your grandparents, when your wife isn't there. If you want to go see them, if you want to talk to them, your wife doesn't have to be involved in everything. Another thing that happens is that a wife puts a lot of pressure on you to tell her everything that your parents or your siblings say to you. And this causes a huge problem, because if you tell her everything that is said and she reacts to it, then it's kind of like this triangulation. So be really wise in that, and figuring out what you need to say and what you don't need to say. You should still be able to have a relationship with a parent that can tell you something in confidence, and tell you their concerns about what they see in your marriage or in your own life, and not have to go straight to your wife and tell her that, because that kind of triangulation is going to really backfire on you. This is not keeping secrets. This is just being a person. Even though you are married and you are one with your spouse, you're still two separate people. You have separate relationships and she has separate relationships. She has a separate relationship with her family aside apart from you, and so do you. So don't let her like fuse it to where it's like, no, everything that we do has to be together. And that's really unhealthy. So you got to be careful that you don't let her talk you into telling her everything that your family says, because she will use that against you and use that to break you apart from your family. So be wise. If you aren't wise and you sense this problem, then get some help, get intervention. The more that you react to this and get just really sensitive to it, and like you don't want to accuse your wife of doing things, but you want to be discerning of what you see going on and then react calmly and wisely in response, but not in reactivity. I hope that makes sense. You're not going to argue and fight and try to convince her. You're just going to state your truth quietly. You're going to make decisions based on what you know and who you know your parents to be. And don't let her turn you against your parents. There's so many scenarios and different family dynamics that could be going on here, or so many issues that you could have with your wife, that I'm like thinking, oh, I could talk for days and days to try to cover everything. I'm speaking in generalities. I'm not speaking in specific to all the circumstances that are in your life. So if you're not sure, go to check with a counselor or somebody that knows you and other people's experiences with your wife. You maybe your friends, because you might notice that if your wife feels like this towards your family, she might also feel like this towards your friends. So if you sense she's pulling you away from your friends and pulling you away from your family, jealous about your time with your friends, your siblings, you start to see that pattern again. And so you start to be discerning about what that pattern is. Now, your children have a right to see both grandparents, as I said, I believe. And you want to make sure that you do not allow your wife to just maliciously pull children away from your parents. When children know their grandparents and all of a sudden their grandparents disappear, this is harmful and hurtful to them. And if there's never an explanation, or if your wife is going to turn your children against your family, against your parents, you should not allow that. If she is saying things that are not true, you should put a stand and say, look, you're not going to keep my children, our children, you should say our children, not my children, from knowing my family. That is not good for you. I think if you look at I'm just all of a sudden thinking, look at, I don't know if you know this about what's going on, but if you look at England with the royal family and Meghan Markle, she obviously pulled Harry away from his family, had a plan of pulling him away from his family and keeping the children very maliciously, very manipulatively, very blatantly, obviously away from his family. And she's using them as, like, I'm certain that she would very easily say something like, if for the right amount of help or money or whatever, maybe you could see your kids. I mean, it's very malicious. It's very obvious. And it shouldn't, it's really, he shouldn't allow it. He shouldn't allow her to take his children, their children, away from his family, although she's away from her family too, which lets you know the degree of malignant narcissism that's involved. So I'm going to stop because I don't want to keep going. I do have classes for men, all my classes. So I have a group for men. So reach out to me and let's get you in one of those if you can. Really, if you can nip this in the bud, as they say, early in your relationship with setting some boundaries, that is best. If you are already in it, then it's probably going to take you standing up within your own relationship first to set some boundaries on like having a relationship with your family or getting back with your family. But try not to let it get to that place, because it's harder to put it back together when it's been completely split. Um, Respect for your parents means you have concern for how your parents feel, even if they're not perfect, even if your mom says stupid things, even if your mom is a mom who runs around telling everybody what to do. My mom still does. She is 95 years old and she gets into my car and she tells me how to drive. And I just hugged her the other day and I said, Mom, I can't believe that you are still so with it, that moment to moment as I am driving, you are giving me a like constant, like, turn here, stop here. It's like in the moment, like, what is going on. I said, you are still so with it that you're still able to be controlling. And she said, oh, no, I'm so sorry. I said, no, no, that was a compliment. I think that's amazing. But yes, it is annoying. You none of our parents are perfect. We are not perfect. We're not going to be perfect with our children. You want that example to your children to cut your parents off because you're going to be their parent and they're going to be able to cut you off and keep their children from you. Bad precedent. So please have respect for your parents. Try to find this place where you can take their needs and consideration too into consideration, but also your wife's, and figure out how to navigate this difficult road. So you can write me, ask me questions, and I always respond to any email that anyone writes me. If I don't respond, it's because somehow it got lost or went to the spam world and I didn't catch it in time. So I look forward to hearing from some of you men out there. And if your mother gave you this video, please listen to it with an open mind and do not share it with your wife because that will only cause there to be more uh, repercussions, hard feelings, and division. You're a separate person. You do not have to share everything in a marriage. That is dysfunctional to think, and it's called enmeshment. So look forward to hearing from you. God bless you. Look at my books and resources. I have When Love Hurts, 10 Principles to Transform Difficult Relationships, and have a 365 daily devotional called Change My Relationship. It's got readings that cover everything and put all of my tips and tools into practice in your life that will help you deal with any difficult people, any dysfunction, and to get strong enough to speak your truth, to set boundaries, to take care of yourself, all of those things. So God bless you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And I will hopefully see you sometime in one of my classes. Bye.